Good morning, DC. How you doing?
Oh, morning, Martin. Doing good this morning.
All right, DC. I tossed it right up to you. You know, the big story, I guess, coming out of the game was injuries overall, and then of course, Bama fans on pins and needles from Saturday night till yesterday. The status of Tua, Saban confirming he said his knee may be even better. Is the Tua thing as much mental potentially as it is physical at this point?
Well, I think it is. I think Nick Saban kind of gave us a hint of that. He said he was better. He didn't say his knee was better. He said he was better this week. And I think what he was talking about there, I think after what happened in the game against Missouri, he felt what he felt. He sat there for a good long time. They worked with him in the tent a long time. After all of that, he came out of the tent with a lot much more confidence and could have went back in. And I think that, it's hard. People out there, they think I'm crazy, but I think that helped him because it did allow him to feel it and use it in a way that he had to. He was trying to accelerate. I'm sure it kind of locked up on him or tweaked up on him when he was trying to accelerate off of it, moving on, but trying to get that first down. And he made a football play where they needed his legs to do it. And after that, after all he felt, after went through all the regiments of checking him, everything was okay, and I think that helped him mentally. So I believe he's better. He's better mentally this week than he was last week.
Yeah, that's what I after hearing Nick Saban, I heard everything from scope to out 2 to 3 weeks, and I said it's probably somewhere in between. But it was good to hear Nick Saban saying that he would be back. Alabama looking forward to a big game against Tennessee, but let's quickly review what happened this past weekend. Give us your assessment of the offense with Tua and what he was able to do, what you saw in that game coming out.
Well, I think they did exactly what I thought they would do against Missouri. I think they exported their defensive backs and their linebackers. And I think Alabama used movement. They've learned. I love when the Alabama coaches learn from other teams. Learn what Arkansas did against us. Did a little movement on that play that hit Jerry Jeudy on the second touchdown. It was the movement on Devontae Smith pre-snap that allowed Jerry Jeudy to get open. And Jeudy even said himself yesterday, I knew I had a touchdown when I saw how they adjusted to Devontae Smith's movement. Well, I think that was just excellent coaching. I think it was excellent play calling. Coach Loxley has impressed me more and more each week. Coach Gaddis getting them ready to play, and so I just think we did a good job in our passing scheme, and that really helped our running game. Our running game had 3 backs over 80 yards, so a really good job in the running game. And one thing I want to point out to our listeners out there, I think we're going to see Josh Jacobs playing more and more. Especially on the field when there's 2 backs in the game. If you watch the running game, when he's in the game as the second back, it opens up running lanes for either Najee or Damian Harris or whoever this other back is, because the linebacker has to key on him coming out of the backfield. He's such a good weapon catching the ball out of the backfield. It opens up another lane for running. So I think they found a really good set there to run out of. So I was impressed with the offense overall.
Yeah, I was too, and Josh Jacobs just seems to play with a motor that's, you see those sports cars that's always revved up and the tires are spinning. He seems to play with that type of intensity. Not that the other guys don't. It's just something special about that young man, and we see that he definitely was injured last year, but he seems to have it all back together this year. We're speaking with DC in the Capstone Report, presented by RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. DC, let's talk a little bit on Jalen coming in after Tua. When you look at the offensive play calling, was that twofold? I know Saban said they were taking the ball out of the air, but it also, to me, made me wonder, is that more of what we would see with Jalen at the quarterback helm, meaning more single back, ace formation with 1 back, a tight end or 2 tight ends in the game where we're trying to run the ball and then using play action? Or was that just about shrinking the game? A lot less RPOs, and to me, I think it made the offensive line blocking the running game a little easier because they weren't wondering if there were going to be a potential pass and down the field penalty.
Well, I think in that game, I think the idea and the scheme when Jalen came in was, hey, we're going to run the ball, we're going to take some time off the clock, and that's why they were in those schemes. I think when you're running the ball, it does give the linemen an advantage in their blocking. I think when I've said it before on your show, when we go out to run the ball, the linemen know they're blocking a run. They have a better setup for that. They do a better job of gaining more yards that way. I think Tua has an advantage on the RPOs. His quickness and his quick release is really good for the RPOs. So when Jalen comes in, I don't think they just like, for example, if Jalen had to start a game and it's a game where we're 0-0 going in, I think the playbook's more open for Jalen this year than it would have been in past years because he's definitely improved his downfield passing and his selection and who to throw the ball to. So I don't think it's a part of we take our game plan out when Jalen quarterback. I think it's just situational. In the game against Missouri, Coach Saban had an idea we're going to run the ball. We're going to take some time off the clock.
All right. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. A lot of Bama fans was on the ledge last week. Even heard one guy call for Tosh Lapoy's job. It was pretty crazy. And that's all about the standard in which Alabama plays to as much as anything. But what was your overall assessment of the defense against Missouri?
Oh, very impressed with the defense. I mean, we come out and hold probably the most prolific offense other than Alabama in the SEC. Probably the best quarterback other than Tua in the SEC, holding 10 points. And, you got Savion Smith starting in place of Trayvon Diggs, who immediately steps up and makes an interception. He was keyed in, locked in. But the guy on the defense that I thought stepped up was Mac Wilson. Coach Saban kind of tapped him as the leader going in, and I think he was disappointed in himself after the play of the Arkansas game. I think he said that. If you followed him on Twitter, if you listen to his interviews, he said he was disappointed in himself. Well, obviously, we know now what happened. He stepped his game up. He started watching more film. He did all the things that had made him a good linebacker up to that point. And I think sometimes when you get saddled with so much responsibility, you let something go, and I think his film watching is what he had let go. And he said he goes back in there even at night watching film. Well, you can tell in this game, watching him, that he had us in the right play and was able to adjust on the fly to stop a lot of those runs because obviously Missouri had a tail on their film when they were going to run the ball. And after he adjusted to that, after a couple of early runs, he was able to call the plays for the defense to get us in the right place. And he has over 11 tackles, so he obviously stepped his game up. So I think Mac Wilson was the reason that got our defense charged up, and he was the leader that Coach Saban wanted to be for this game. And of course, I was impressed with Quinnion Williams. I can't go a week without talking about Quinnion. He's on defense. One play on that safety, I mean, he took his man, and it was just not going to be denied. He took his man off the backfield into the middle of the quarterback and sacked him for the safety. So, I mean, if you put a man on a man and it's man on man, Quinnion Williams, I believe, wins it every time. I
agree. Let's talking about Quinnion Williams. Let's talk about his partners in crime, Davis and Buggs. Was this, in your opinion, I agree with you on Mac Wilson. I think he stepped up his game, got everybody in the right place. But to me, it was the first time all three guys in that first rotation play at a high level at the same time. I think, no doubt. I mean, but I think that flows through Mac Wilson as well. I think everybody realized when he stepped his game up that they need to step their game up, and I think those front three. You're talking about Quinnion Williams, Isaiah Buggs, and Raekwon Davis. Davis and Buggs played probably by far their best game of the season. And I think Davis, and I know everybody's talking about his extracurricular activities, but he was frustrated, I think, with some things that were going on in that game. I'm not sure if the average person watching on really saw how Missouri would play. I never like to call a team out, but a couple of those plays, especially when you watch the play back when some of our linemen are engaged, Missouri's engaged in a little extracurricular activity after the whistle several times in fouls. And if you watch their defense, when they tackled Henry Ruggs III, they intentionally rolled his ankle at the very end, twisted it, got his hand twisting it like a WWE move. So watch that film back a little bit, and you'll see some of the frustration how it boiled over from
offense to defense. I believe on our offensive line, we were being held almost every time on their offensive line.
Yeah.
And then they were using some tactics that you probably remember from the old days, that hand giving them the business in the pile after the whistle goes off.
Yes.
I think Mr. Cotton got poked in the eyes a couple of times.
Yes.
And the ref did nothing about it.
Yeah, and that's what's really bad. The officiating as a whole, to me, is not what it used to be, but I think Alabama definitely gets the low end of the stick, short end of the stick, I should say, when it comes to officiating. We're speaking with DC in the Capstone Report. You can always catch his weekly podcast at dccapstonereport.com. Coming back, we'll continue in the second half with DC Capstone Report right here on the Blitz. Other than Tua, would you say that Quentin Williams potentially has been the most consistent player on this team from start to finish, game in and game out, and has been as dominant a factor on our defense as Tua has been on the offense? And that's hard to say because the guy replaced the guy who was a top 15 pick and may actually go higher in the draft than Duran did. But anyway, let's continue our conversation with DC Capstone Report right here on your home for Alabama sports. Remember, you can find the DC Capstone Reports podcast in its entirety on at dccapstonereport.com, sponsored by RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. DC, let's continue our conversation and breakdown of Alabama win against Missouri. And then I want to get your thoughts on our upcoming third Saturday in October showdown with Tennessee. What's your closing takeaways from the defense, whether it's how well Savion and Smith played, Shy Carter, all those guys stepping up? What was your major takeaway in terms of Alabama's defense outside of Mack Wilson's improvement?
Well, I think my major takeaway was play into a standard. I think the defense across the board played to a standard that we're used to seeing Alabama play to. And I think that's a big plus. I think we needed the Arkansas game. I think it had gotten so complacent on defense that the offense was scoring 50 points a game that they gotten so complacent on defense. And then they realized, hey, this is not the standard that we play to. So we always need a game like that to get us ready for the home stretch. And I think the Arkansas game was that. So my biggest takeaway was that overall we stepped up and played well. I think something that most people haven't mentioned, but I believe Jared Maiden coming in and really doing well in that safety role, which allows Sam Carter and Xavier McKinney to move up in star and money position. And Savion Smith's role in this game was really big. I think overall, it's great to have Deontay Thompson back there, but to have another safety that can come in, play the field, play his position the way he did. He was second, third on the depth chart. I think it's a big plus for Alabama, especially in that thin defensive backfield.
Yeah, and that's what Saban said would have to happen. Guys would have to step up. I did like the fact that he was asked about Shy Carter, and he said he thinks that Shy Carter will actually be better now that he's locked into to one role. So we'll watch Shy Carter's development as we move forward. Alabama has their yearly showdown with Tennessee coming up. It's been a decade since Tennessee's been able to do anything against Alabama. What's your initial assessment of the job that Jeremy Pruitt's doing at Tennessee, especially coming off the big win against the Auburn Tigers this past weekend?
Well, I think Jeremy Pruitt has done a fantastic job at Tennessee. I mean, I know early in the season people were wondering how long it was going to be before we win a big game, and here they are. They already won a big game against Auburn on the road. I think you tell the fans before the season ever starts that, hey, Jeremy Pruitt's going to take this team on the road against the top 25 opponent and be a 14-point underdog and win. They would have taken that all day long. So I think Jeremy Pruitt's taking a lot of Alabama's processes. I think he's trying to change the culture there at Tennessee, and I believe that he's got them on the right track. And that being said, I think it's a great motivational thing for them to go in and meet Auburn. But let's be honest, this is not the Auburn team of 2 years ago or even last year. And so I think they did take advantage of a situation. I believe Auburn was coming off of some internal problems I heard their beat writer write a story. I heard him quoted said he had 5 or 6 players and our coaches, people on the inside, tell him what's going on in the locker room. Auburn tried to put a Band-Aid on that during the week. It didn't work. I think the defense at Auburn is a little frustrated with the offense, and they're not playing together. So Tennessee caught them at the right time, but they did win the ball game on the road in the SEC. And that's a big thing. So I think Jeremy Pruitt's got them in a great place. But that being said, I still think Alabama has the advantage in this game. I think Alabama has the advantage with the players, with the athleticism, and with just the entire makeup, offense and defense. I just think we're that much better than them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the talent level, there's still a huge gap there. Jeremy Pruitt doing some nice things in terms of. I think he kind of has a scaled back version of what he did here. And slowly implement it, and those guys seem to be getting better. They don't have as much complexity, DC, but they seem to be getting better and better at what they do. So kudos to Jeremy Pruitt. But when Alabama goes up there, there's been a lot of conversation around whether Tua plays or not, and do you rest him or not. If Tua plays, I don't think there's any question whether Alabama wins or not. So I'll ask you a question. If Alabama goes up there and Tua is not able to play, or if Saban just chooses to hold him out and Jalen's at the helm, what do you see Jalen in his performance being going into that game?
Well, I'd look for if Jalen Hurts starts, I think we win the game handily. Jalen Hurts is a much better quarterback this year than he was last year. I think our offense overall is a much better offense than it was last year. So we put up big points against them last year. I don't see any difference in being on the road this year. I think Hurts will run the game plan, be able to make the throws, and I think he gives us a little different advantage, mobility in the pocket, because I don't think Tua is going to be that mobile in this game. So I don't think Jeremy Pruitt can rely on keeping him in the pocket. So I think if Jalen's in the game, he gives us a little run advantage. I don't see it being a problem. I don't see it being a problem if Mac Jones starts in this game. To be honest with you, our offense is that much better.
And I hadn't even thought about that. I just think Tennessee's that far off. I think Jeremy Pruitt's doing a lot of good things, but in no way do I think those teams are they're ready to take on this Alabama team. When you look at just kind of around, if I can kind of transition from Alabama to around the SEC, I mean the nation, is college football down as a whole in your opinion, DC?
Well, I don't know. I can say it's down. I think a lot of fans will tell you that. A lot of talking heads will tell you that. But I think that around the nation, I believe there are certain teams within certain conferences that are catching up with other teams. You have, I think, probably 4 or 5 elite teams and a lot of really good teams. And so I think the top heaviness of the whole entire league makes it look a little more mediocre. Well, I don't really believe that. I think maybe a couple of conferences might be down. The Pac-12 maybe down this year based on their performances. A few teams that are notoriously good, like Nebraska, but they're on a rebuilding stage as well. So I'm not sure that you can say the whole college team is down. College football is down. I just think there's a few elite teams. There's a lot of good teams.
When you look at the top 10 couple teams, to ask you a couple questions about if Notre Dame runs the table, are they in no matter what? Well,
I think there's such a love for Notre Dame out there that's a very good possibility that they'll run the table. But if you look at some of the games they've had some very close games, and I'm not so sure that they're the team that everybody thinks they are. And if I was in that room, I would judge it on play and who people have played, and I'm not so sure they get in no matter what over a great one-loss team. Let's say one of these teams that are playing so well, the elite teams, and they have a hiccup one Saturday and lose. I'm not so sure that Notre Dame undefeated gets in over a one-loss team. I just think you have to look at each game and look at the schedule and look how they played in those games. And so I just can't say that for sure. I know people love Notre Dame. If they go undefeated, they want to put them in the playoffs. But I'm not sure this year if one of those teams has a one loss that I consider to be an elite team right now, if Notre Dame gets in over that team.
Yeah, and to me, I look at this Notre Dame team much like the one that ended up against Alabama. They were undefeated, but they clearly wasn't the second best team in the country. And I think this team is headed down that same path. UCF is up in the top 10. Are they going to keep them at 10? Or are they going to work them in where if they run the table, could this team possibly get in, or are they this is just the AP poll and they may actually be lower when the college football playoffs come out?
No, I think they'll be lower when the playoffs come out. I just don't see UCF. I don't think I watched them play. I've seen a couple of their games, and they've been a couple of close games this year. They're not as good as they were last year. They didn't get in last year. I don't see them getting in this year.
All right. One last question for you, DC. DC and the Capstone Report. Remember, you can always find them at dccapstonereport.com. DC, LSU, legit or not? And if they get past Mississippi State, how big of a game is that between Alabama and LSU with all the marbles on the line if both teams win this weekend?
Well, I think they're legit in what they're putting on the field. I think they've played some teams and really had some good game plans for the teams. I think they had a great game plan against Georgia. I really believe they've manhandled Georgia. Just outplayed them aggressively. If they get past Mississippi State, they don't have a letdown against Mississippi State. I think it sets up a big game for Alabama. I still think Alabama has an advantage over LSU in several areas, but I still think it's a good game. But I think it's probably the best chance that Ed Orgeron has ever had to beat an Alabama team this year. And I think I give him a chance when you're playing at Baton Rouge, probably at night against Alabama. They always have a chance. So I think they're probably legit this year.
All right. We actually had a call come in that wanted to speak with you. Tom wants to speak with you about the Alabama versus UT. Tom, you're in with DC. What's your question for him?
Good morning, Martin, and good morning, DC. Hey, DC, I wanted to send you out with a little humor this morning. We had a caller calling saying that he didn't think that Jalen could be productive against Tennessee this week. And, when he said that, DC, guess who I heard in the background? Roger Schultz saying that Jalen Hurts has got to start paying property taxes in Knoxville because he freaking owns them 49-7 in front of Fat Phil, Feinbaum, and that ex-commissioner of the SC. All Jalen did, Pat, was go up there and lay it on them in front of their celebrities. Oh, yeah, and Pay. He was at the game, and Jalen laid 49 on them. Thank you, Roll Tide.
All right, DC, I'll let you close out your closing thoughts on that, and then tell our listeners how they can stay in touch with you.
Well, my closing thoughts on that is that your call is exactly correct. I think Jalen goes up there, and if Jalen starts, he lays 10 points on Alabama. My actual prediction this week is 52-17. It doesn't matter who starts, as I said, Tua, Jalen, Mac Jones. It doesn't matter. I don't think so. I'm okay with your caller there. I think Alabama's a much better team offensively than Tennessee is defensively.
Yeah.
Well, you can find us this week at DC Capstone Report, also RollTideBama.com, FreelancePictures.com. Lance does a great job of photos. I know we don't talk about that much at the game, so if you want to go into those sites and get photos, you can go, and he has a great job of the Elephant Stomp, the $1 Million Band. We put up a video of the $1 Million Band last week, Martin. We had over 3,500 views of just the video of the band. So there's a lot of people out there that love all-around football, that love the other things as well. So he's got cheerleader pics, $1 Million Band pics, videos, things you can get off the website. So you can also follow me at DavidCott50 on Twitter, at DavidCott50. And it's just a pleasure for us to be associated with your show, Mark. You did such a great job.
Well, we appreciate you, DC, and we want to encourage our listeners to continue to go out and listen to that in podcast at DC Capstone Report. Thanks, DC. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Martin. You have a great week.
All right, Roll Tide.